All right, fellas, welcome back. Today we are going to go over how to get to 10% body fat while getting jacked. All right, this is going to be the shreds blueprint. If I would have incorporated this back whenever I was a kid on the left here, I would have saved myself a lot of time and effort if I knew these concepts and I apply these concepts to my day-to-day life. Okay? You see a lot of stuff on social media that is very extreme or it can point you in the wrong direction, and this video is going to be designed to give you everything that you need to get shredded while also getting jacked, getting a good physique for the summer. Summer's coming up. The boys need to get right. So without further ado, I think that's how you say it, but whatever, we'll get straight into it. Little background on myself, by the way. I'm an online fitness coach. I've been in the fitness industry, been working out since 7 years ago. So I have some experience under my belt. I have a handful of clients as well with me at the moment. And so these are the same principles that I teach them. Okay. The first thing we're going to go over, guys, is building a bigger furnace. Okay. This is an analogy that I use whenever we're talking about your metabolism with your fuel as well. And think of your body, guys. I want you to think of your body as a furnace. Okay. And there's two ways to go about it. You can either put less fuel into the furnace, or you can just build a bigger furnace to get better at burning the fuel. Okay. More muscle mass means increase in your basal metabolic rate. This basal metabolic rate, what that means is just the amount of calories that you're burning at rest. So the amount of calories that I'm burning right now, just sitting here making this video. Okay. Strength and hypertrophy training will increase this muscle mass. And we can go over here real quick. Not this, not this. Here we go. Training. So heavy compounds, progress them week by week and get strong. Now, people often confuse getting strong with increasing your muscle mass, and that's not true, but it will help you push harder in those isolation style movements for hypertrophy. An example progression, and you can take this set and rep scheme for pretty much any of these exercises. I have some over here. You have your squat, bench press, RDL, weighted pull up, overhead press. These are like your main compound movements for strength. Okay. Example progression 4x8 at 70% of your 1 rep max, 4x6 at 75, 80%, 4x5, 80, 85%, 4x4, 85 to 90%, 4x3, 90, 95%. Just a very simple periodization for strength. This will also, they talk about accumulation, intensification, realization. That's more of like a power lifter style training block, but this is just a very simple training block, strength block that you guys can run for pretty much any major compound lift. I recommend going through full range of motion for injury prevention as well. I don't know why my mouse died. We'll see if we turn this back on. All right, cool. Yeah, so full range of motion, for injury prevention. This is very important. If you neglect this, your chances of injury, go up dramatically, and you're just going to hinder your progress down the road. Secondly, get a pump. Now, while the pump doesn't actually mean that you're hypertrophying or you're building more muscle, it is a good indicator that you're pushing yourself. I just say get a pump because people understand that. They know what I'm talking about. Isolation movements targeting similar muscle groups, okay? Less systemic fatigue, so push to failure. I don't know if you guys have ever seen those science-based lifters doing like a single arm tricep extension, and immediately after he's done, he's like, oh, that was about 1 to 2 RIR. That's a load of crap. Stop thinking like that whenever you're doing simple isolation style movements. You're not generating systemic fatigue to the point where you might get injured from that exercise. For these things, for like the strength movements, those heavy compound movements, that's why we do the periodization with the 70%, 80%, all the way up to 90, 95%. We're not going to failure on these necessarily. But for these, with these isolation movements, we can, right? You're using machines. There's no reason to not do that. Okay. For example, after bench press, chest flies, tricep extensions, dumbbell pullovers, etc. Pair these if you're running like a push-pull legs, right? The split doesn't really matter, but making sure that we're getting a pump after we chase our strength numbers in the gym. 10 to 15 rep range. This could even say like anywhere from 8, even 6 has been shown like to stimulate hypertrophy, anywhere from the 6 to all the way up to 30, honestly. But I think anywhere in the 8 to 15 range is going to be your best bet. Still progressively overloading these week by week. A lot of people, they overlook this fact. They still think that they can do the same dumbbell curls with the same weight for 8 weeks in a row and grow their biceps. That's not true. You have to be progressively overloading these week by week, okay? And lastly, movement and mobility. This is part of my training. I'm not just training to be a bodybuilder here. I'm training to be, an athlete in one way, shape, or form. So cardio, high intensity interval training, plyos, sprinting. This is where you get into, instead of thinking about it like body part splits, this is where it's a high CNS, low CNS. So for instance, high CNS means high strain on your central nervous system. So sprinting, high intensity interval training, plyos, hypertrophy would also fall into this category because you're going to failure on a lot of your exercises. Low CNS, zone 2 cardio, additionally like power training, so like submaximal loads. You can also have strength training is more of like a medium CNS because you're not going to failure, but oscillate between high and low CNS if that's the route that you're going. For instance, if I'm working like a power day, I can definitely do some high CNS, whether it's a sprinting or a high intensity interval training circuit. I recommend, whether it's cardio, sprinting, high intensity interval training, something that's not just purely bodybuilding, I recommend at least doing maybe like once or twice a week. Incorporate mobility training as well. A lot of weak links that I see a lot of my clients come with, and a lot of just sort of nagging and lagging muscle groups or body parts, are the hip flexors, groin, shoulders, glutes, upper back, hamstrings, and QLs. And this is from just a lot of our lifestyles. We're sitting in our chair for the majority of the day. We have jobs that we have to go to. And so your hip flexors will get tight, your groin will get tight, shoulders, glutes, upper back from hunched over sitting all day. Glutes will turn off because you're sitting in the chair, and then hamstrings and QLs. So making sure that you incorporate movement and mobility style exercises and lifts within your training program. And this will be a separate video too we can go over for another day, but that is not the focus of this video. So we covered build a bigger furnace, right? More muscle mass, more basal metabolic rate, higher your basal metabolic rate, strength and hypertrophy training. Now, secondly, moving on to nutrition, fueling the furnace. This is what you're going to be putting into your body to get to 10% body fat, right? To get shredded. Going over, you can see this cone shaped here. The traditional Western diet, this is pretty much flipped on its side, right? You see a lot of carbs, a lot of fat, and then protein somewhere near the top, but this is the opposite of what you should be doing. This is how, at least I eat. This is what's worked for me. And we can cover, starting from the top, veggies and fat. So veggies, I see this all the time on social media, that these veggies, people talk about oxalates and how it'll, lower your test or all these different things, but that's just not true, okay? Veggies are going to give you micronutrients, and they're also going to increase your satiety, okay? So you can eat a lot of veggies and they will make you feel fuller. Not only that, but you only need to worry about oxalates, okay, if you have bad gut health or kidney stone risk, okay? These are grossly over-demonized by social media. People make this out to be a huge deal when it's really not, if you're eating a diet like this, where it's majority of protein. I grouped fat into this category as well, and not because you should be eating, not a lot of fat. It's just that, you get the majority of it from your whole food sources of protein anyways, like steak, eggs, etc. So this can be, I threw avocados in there, but like dark chocolate or butter and stuff, like, yeah, you will have this throughout the day, but I don't want you to like focus on the fat, because you're going to get a lot of that from your whole food sources of protein. Additionally, carbs and fruit. Clean carbs, okay? Less ingredients, the better. Most Western diets have tons of ingredients and ultra processed version of what was intended to be healthy. For example, bread. Okay. I believe in Europe too, the grains that they use are different than the ones in America. Don't quote me on that. That's what I heard. And to be honest with you, I believe it because people will go to Europe and they will lose just 10 pounds eating pasta and drinking wine. It's the same thing. Now, granted, they're probably walking more because Europe is more of a walking um, continent, and the countries in there like Spain or Italy, you're walking, you're probably going on tours, but the principles are still the same. You'll go to the grocery store. I want you guys to do this. Go to the grocery store, look at, a regular loaf of bread, even better if it's like a reduced fat or like low sugar. You'll see you'll see an ingredient list a mile long. Okay. You can't even pronounce half of those ingredients. That's why I say less ingredients the better. So sourdough bread, wheat, water, flour, whatever it is, right? Less ingredients the better. Additionally, I eat a ton of fruit in my diet. I'm always snacking on fruit. People also like to demonize carbs. It's like, oh, just do it carnivore. You don't need carbs. Your body will literally produce carbs if you won't eat them. Okay. That's what ketones are. If you heard of a keto diet, your brain and your muscles want to use glucose. It's the most efficient fuel source possible. Okay. Fruit equals glucose, primary fuel source for muscles. So structure these around your workouts, right? For example, I will eat a ton of fruit before my workout and honey. So like honey, banana, dates, etc. I'll put it on like a piece of sourdough bread before working out. It's the best pre-workout food that you can eat. Okay. Carbs are not bad. It's just the source, the amount, and timing are what mess people up. For instance, excuse me, unless we're doing something crazy like training for a marathon or whatever, we're not going to be carb loading at night. There's just no reason to. We don't need a bunch of glycogen in our muscles and feed ourselves with pasta. But, if we're in the morning, let's say we have a morning workout, fasted workouts are going to be terrible for you. You're not going to have the adequate fuel to push to failure and get hypertrophy, right? To stimulate hypertrophy, to actually stimulate an adaptation for your muscles to grow, to increase your basal metabolic rate, right? Because this will just make it easier. This is like compound interest, okay? This is like a dividend being paid out. This just rewards you for doing nothing. It's an investment, okay? Carbs are not bad, the source, amount, and timing, right? So the source, fruit, white rice, potatoes, sweet potatoes, regular potatoes, honey, things like that will be your best bet. This is what I eat. I'm not eating a ton of pasta. I'm not eating a ton of bread. I'm usually focusing on what you see in this cone, in this pyramid. Amount as well. So the amount will be different for all of you. I'm not going to say some sort of standard that you need to have, but if you're tracking macros, for instance, fat anywhere from 0.3 to 0.5 times your pounds in body weight. And then with protein, we'll talk about, 1 gram at least per pound of body weight, and then just kind of fill in the rest with carbs and fruit. As like a general rule of thumb. But this will be different for everyone. And I just say structure these around your workouts. And, I typically like the first half of my day is more carb heavy, and then I'll lean out as the day goes on into more protein. And protein is what we will talk about next. This is the staple, guys. This is going to be the staple of your diet. Majority of diet will be centered around your protein. As a general rule of thumb, every meal you have should have at least like 20 grams of protein, at least, as a bare minimum. Additionally, animal-based, okay? Animal-based will always be better than plant-based because plant-based sources of protein like soy, they will contain phytoestrogens, and phytoestrogens have estrogenic effects, which means more estrogen in your body, which means not good, right? We want to increase steroid hormones like testosterone and DHT, right? And that's what animal-based proteins will do because they contain a lot of micronutrients, fat, and cholesterol, aka the building blocks of testosterone and DHT, which are your hormones. Now, people think that you won't absorb a lot of cholesterol from these animal-based sources of protein. There's been studies done where a guy, I think, ate like a crazy amount of eggs per day, like 12 or 15 eggs a day. And eggs have a lot of cholesterol in them, but his cholesterol levels actually, I think, went down or at least stayed the same. So you don't actually absorb a lot of cholesterol, but what I do know is that animal-based sources of protein, a lot of micronutrients that help facilitate the building blocks of testosterone and DHT. It helps facilitate, the production of these hormones. Okay, and then protein, you need protein as a building block to build muscle. Simple as that. Last but not least, we have NEAT, or non-exercise activity thermogenesis. This is going to be the difference maker. This is why you can have the same diet and program as someone else, but with drastically different results, because 96% of your day is spent outside the gym. Okay, if you think about it, you're only in the gym at most 2 hours a day. And that's pushing it. That's being generous. Usually it's only like an hour, right? What you do outside of the gym, activity-wise, is way, I would argue, more important. Okay, because and now we're talking about lifestyle factors. That's why you see people, like, I'm going back to Europe, they walk everywhere. They probably get 15 to 20,000 steps a day, compared to someone in the US getting like less than 7,000 or less than 5,000 because they're sitting at an office job all day. Okay? Act like you're poor, okay? Maybe some of us don't have to act like it, but like, honestly, guys, act like you're poor. Walk, bike, and run everywhere you can. If it's within a 2-mile radius, go walk, go run there, go get your bike out of the garage and go bike there. Okay? I promise you, if you slow down a little bit, not only will you be able to think clearer, be able to slow down your day a little bit more, but you'll also be gathering steps, burning more calories throughout the day, and those things will add up cumulatively over time. Okay? Even little hacks like parking far away from the store. We, especially modern day, where we're flooded with dopamine and we're flooded with comfort. We always seek comfort, right? We always try to get the closest parking spot. We always try to make things more convenient for us. That mindset needs to shift into everything now is an opportunity to burn more calories. So park far away from the store, right? Park far away from whatever it is that you're going to. Look at it as an opportunity to build or to burn more calories, okay? You should be looking at everything in your life, right? Going for a walk during lunch, walking back instead of driving. All of these different things, going for a bike ride, all these different things will add up cumulatively over time to where, right, we're just burning more fuel. This, combined with building a bigger furnace, is a cheat code to getting shredded, okay? This is all you need. All of this information is here. Now, all that's left for you to do is execute. And my clients, they don't have to worry about what to do, how to eat, because I give this all to them. I give them a nutrition system, and having a system in place is going to be your best bet of ensuring that you're going to be making progress in this fashion, okay? If you want, there's a link down below for my one-on-one consultation. If that sounds like something that you're interested in, feel free to click that link and schedule a call down below. But with that, guys, the Shreds Blueprint, this is everything that you need to get in shape for summer, to get shredded, and to actually feel your best as you live life. Peace.